Sounds like a monkey call. The words cracked across the security line like a whip. Passengers froze mid-stride. Plastic bins clattered to the floor. A single laugh, sharp, cruel, deliberate, cut through the sterile hum of the airport. All eyes turned. At the checkpoint stood a black woman, mid-30s, coat tailored but plain ivory scarf looped once around her neck. In one hand, a slim phone pressed to her ear. In the other, a passport she hadn't been allowed to place on the tray. Her shoulders stayed steady, but the flicker in her eyes said she had heard this scene before too many times. Across from her, the uniformed agent leaned forward, finger pointed like a dagger, lips curled in mock amusement. Her red tie burned against the gray backdrop as she sneered. "Repeat that again. Let everyone hear it. It's comedy." The woman did not answer. She exhaled slowly, as if anchoring herself to the ground beneath polished floors. Behind her, the line of travelers grew restless. A man in a green jacket whispered to his companion, "Did she really say that?" A mother pressed her child closer. Silence spread like smoke. Then came the second blow. The agent barked, "Security! We may have fraud here. Freeze the account. Freeze the 950 million right now." Her voice rose theatrically, designed to humiliate, to brand this woman as spectacle. Gasps rippled across the queue. Someone raised a phone. Another shook his head, murmuring, "Unbelievable." The black woman adjusted her grip on the phone. Her voice, when it came, was calm, even measured. "Proceed. Verify properly. No raised tones, no stumble. Just a firmness that unnerved more than any protest. She had known airports since childhood. She remembered being 16, standing in line with her parents in Charlotte, told her family, didn't sound American enough. She had learned then that accents could be weaponized like shackles. And now, decades later, the chain rattled again, right here at gate D-17. The agent smirked, sensing power. "People like you don't fly first class across oceans, not with money that big." Her words dripped venom, but her hands trembled just slightly, betraying fear of something unnamed. The woman stayed silent, eyes forward, spine unbent. Around her, witnesses began to stir. A student lifted his phone, the red light blinking. An older man muttered, "This will go viral." A young flight trainee at the side bit her lip, conflicted. It was not just an insult anymore. It was a stage, a public trial. And yet the accused did not flinch. She stood as if carved from iron, her very silence forcing the crowd to listen. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to her. The air around gate D-17 wasn't just heavy, it was charged. The insult had been spoken, recorded, embedded into the memory of every traveler in that hall. But the woman at the center of it all had not yet revealed who she was, or the storm she was about to unleash. And the first crack in the terminal's facade had only just begun. The line shuffled forward, uneasy now, like a tide caught in a storm it didn't ask for. Every traveler had heard the insult. Some stared at the floor, pretending not to. Others held their phones low, pretending not to record, pretending not to care. But the weight in the air said otherwise. The black woman did not move from her place. Her phone still pressed to her ear, her voice still quiet. A single phrase slipped through, "Confirm the file." Whoever was on the other end answered quickly, too soft for the crowd to catch. The agent smirked wider, sensing the moment as theater. "You hear that?" she told the passengers in line. "This one's trying to sound important. Accent thick as mud, talking millions she doesn't have. It's pathetic." Her words weren't just cruel, they were bait. A man in a gray hoodie whispered, "That's too far." A young woman clutching her boarding pass shook her head, lips pressed tight. Near the back, a college student lifted his phone higher. The red record light blinked again. The black woman's eyes shifted just for a second toward the lens. Then she said, calm, deliberate, "No footage, not yet." The student froze. "But—" "Words," she said, voice cutting sharper than a shout. "Use your words." Ugh. That single exchange silenced the row. Even the agent faltered, caught off guard that her target was controlling the room without raising her voice. The manager arrived then, summoned by chaos, his suit too tight, his jaw set in habitual disdain. He scanned the scene, eyes narrowing as if he already knew the conclusion. "What's happening here?" he asked, but his tone was no question. She's unverified, the agent said quickly. Papers questionable, claiming impossible funds. The manager stepped closer, close enough for the crowd to hear every syllable. This terminal is not for people like you. Step aside before you hold up real clients. Gasps rose again. The words weren't whispered. They were delivered like policy, like fact. The woman didn't blink. She remembered Atlanta years ago, 24 and exhausted from meetings, denied boarding because her surname didn't match the accent. She had slept in a rented car that night, vowing never again. Yet here she stood, decades later, hearing the same script. The scarf around her neck caught the overhead light, pale against the dark navy of her coat. Not flashy, not loud, intentional. She had chosen this look to disappear into the line, to test the air. And the air had failed her. Papers, the manager demanded, palm outstretched like a verdict. She placed the passport gently into his hand. No tremor, no hesitation. He flipped it open, scanned it once, then twice. His jaw tightened. Something in the details unsettled him, but pride kept his voice cold. Suspicious. Might be forged. He waved the document toward security. And then, as if on cue, the crowd began to shift. A mother near the stroller muttered, "She gave ID, you're making this up." A man in business attire said louder, "If she were white, you'd have cleared her already." The balance of silence tipped. The witnesses were no longer pretending. The woman's phone buzzed softly in her palm. She lifted it just enough to whisper, "Proceed to phase 1." No one in the terminal knew what that meant. Not yet, but the stillness in her eyes said the airport was about to learn. The terminal had grown into a stage. Every second, more travelers slowed, more phones tilted discreetly, more whispers bled into the sterile air. The woman in the scarf stood motionless, but the scene swirled around her like a storm finding its eye. The manager snapped his fingers. "Passport?" he barked again, though it was already in his hand. He flipped through the pages theatrically, as if the paper itself would betray her. Then, with a sudden flick, he thrust it toward the agent beside him. "Flag this. Possible forgery." The agent grinned. She pinched the passport between two fingers like it was contaminated. Then she raised her voice deliberately, for the hall to hear. "Traveling with a fake. Imagine that." Gasps scattered across the line. Someone muttered, "That's her identity you're holding." Another whispered, "You can't just say that out loud." The black woman's gaze followed the passport as it disappeared behind the counter. But her body didn't move. Her stillness was louder than panic. "Check the accounts too," the manager added. His tone rehearsed cruelty. 950 million? Please, people like her don't touch numbers like that. It was meant as an insult, not procedure. But the phrase landed heavy. Even those who wanted to look away couldn't, end quote. The figure hung in the air like an accusation. The woman inhaled slowly, let the silence hang, then spoke evenly. "You've taken my documents. Now verify." The agent smirked, leaning forward, voice dripping with mockery. "Say it again, with that accent. Let everyone hear." Her cruelty was surgical. Not about the passport, not about funds, about voice, about belonging. A teenager near the rope line whispered to his mother, "Why are they mocking her voice?" The mother hushed him, but her eyes stayed fixed on the scene. And then came the shove. The agent slid the passport into a drawer, slammed it shut with finality, and announced loudly, "Identity seized. Security on the way." The crowd erupted. A man in a business suit snapped, "That's theft." A woman clutching her toddler said, "You can't just steal her passport." The manager turned sharply, voice booming. "Enough. This terminal serves real clients, not imposters." The insult wasn't just aimed at her anymore. It was aimed at every witness who dared to speak. The woman finally lifted her phone, pressing it closer to her lips. Her tone was steady, each syllable deliberate. "Phase 2. Log every word." On the other end, whoever she spoke to answered swiftly, calm, confirmed. The agent scoffed, talking to her imaginary millions. She laughed, but the laugh was thinner now, stretched by the sound of passengers muttering louder, angrier. The woman lowered her phone, eyes sweeping the crowd once as if to tell them, "Not yet." And so the storm kept building. The insults louder, the accusations sharper, the witnesses braver. At gate D17, the facade of order was cracking, and no one, not the agent, not the manager, Not even security realized that the quietest person in the hall was the one holding the fuse. The announcement of identity seized still echoed when the first phone lifted high, no longer pretending. A young man in a gray sweatshirt stepped out of the line, his camera aimed straight at the counter. The red record light cut through the sterile glow like a flare. The agent snapped at him immediately. "Put that down. Filming is prohibited in this zone." He didn't move. His voice carried across the hall, steady but firm. "People need to see this." The crowd stirred. Dozens of eyes locked on the black woman standing still in her navy coat and pale scarf, her expression unreadable. She turned toward the young man, not angry, not grateful, just calm. Her voice was low but sharp. "Not the lens. The voice. Use your words." The command landed heavier than a shout. The young man swallowed, lowered the phone a few inches, then spoke. "This is wrong. She gave her passport. She followed the rules." Gasps rippled again. Someone clapped once, tentative but real. The manager spun around, face flushed. "You are interfering with federal procedure. Step back or you'll be detained too." But the words had already lost weight. An older woman, silver hair tucked beneath a travel hat, raised her cane slightly. "Don't talk to him like that. He's right. We all saw what you did." The crowd shifted further. Voices rose, phones tilted. No longer whispers, no longer silence. The black woman stayed still. She had not raised her tone once. Her phone remained by her side, the faint glow of a call still active. From it came a voice too soft for the crowd, but clear to her. Phase 2 recording active. Every phrase logged. She gave no reaction, only a faint nod. The agent slammed her palm against the counter, trying to reclaim control. "You all don't understand. This is policy. We are protecting you." But a mother-in-line snapped back. "Policy doesn't sound like slurs. Policy doesn't mock accents." Ed. The words hit harder than the slam. Murmurs rose into a hum, then into something sharper. The manager hissed through clenched teeth. "Call security again. Double the units." Yet his voice cracked when he realized the optics. A swelling crowd, dozens of witnesses, a woman still silent, and their authority crumbling with every second. The black woman closed her eyes briefly. A memory flickered. Atlanta, 24, sleeping in a rental car. Charlotte, 16, her family pulled aside because they didn't sound American enough. The echo of those moments pressed into her bones now. But she did not let it break her. She let it fuel her silence. When her eyes opened, they were steady, unflinching. She lifted the phone just slightly and whispered, "Stand by." And the hall seemed to sense it. The turning point had not come yet, but it was close. Very close. The tension spread through the terminal like electricity skimming along a wet floor, unseen yet undeniable. Every traveler could feel it. Some leaned in, some leaned away, but no one could leave. The young man in the sweatshirt steadied himself, phone still half raised. "She gave ID," he repeated louder. "We all saw it. You locked it away." The agent shot back, her laugh jagged and shrill. "Oh, and now you're an expert on verification? Sit down before you miss your flight." But the crowd didn't laugh with her. Instead, a second phone lifted this time from a woman in a business suit, heels sharp against the tile. Her voice was precise. "If you don't return her passport, you're committing theft in front of 50 witnesses." The manager's jaw twitched. "You don't know the regulations." The woman fired back. "I know discrimination when I see it." Gasps, murmurs. The hum grew into words, fragments of protest. "She's right. This is ugly. Unbelievable." And still the black woman remained composed, standing in her navy coat, scarf glowing faintly in the sterile light. She did not join the argument. She didn't need to. Her silence was the rope pulling the crowd tighter toward truth. Then another voice rose, timid, shaking. A trainee officer in a pale blue vest, no more than 22. He'd been shadowing at the edge, trying to disappear into his notepad. Now he stammered, "Her boarding record. It scanned green. I saw it." The agent whipped around. "Stay out of this!" But it was too late. The words had left his mouth. The crowd seized them, repeating like an echo chamber. "Scanned green. He saw it. She's valid." The manager stepped forward, his voice louder, desperate. "Enough! This is protocol. This terminal isn't a circus." Yet his authority faltered against the tide of voices. The black woman finally shifted her phone closer to her lips. Her tone was steady, almost inaudible. Phase 3. Note the trainee's statement. A reply came through, crisp, efficient, logged, time-stamped. The agent slammed the counter again, voice rising with panic. You all are being manipulated. She's nobody. Just listen to how she talks. That accent? It's fake, like her documents. This time, the insult didn't land. A mother near the stroller shouted back, Her voice is not the problem, yours is. The crowd roared approval, clapping, stamping. The hum was now a current, pulling stronger by the second. The black woman did not smile, did not flinch. She simply turned her head slightly, her eyes meeting those of the young trainee who had spoken up. A nod, a confirmation that courage mattered. And the storm gathered tighter around gate D17, waiting for the next strike. The hum of protest had barely settled when the manager raised both hands, palms open as if commanding silence. His voice sliced through the noise, low and venomous. Enough, he declared. She is not a client, she is a fraud, and you are all wasting your time. The words rang across the hall like a gavel. Phones lifted higher. Gasps cut the air. The agent leaned in, emboldened. You heard him. She doesn't belong here. Not in this terminal. Not with money that big. This, she pointed directly at the woman in the scarf, is a con artist, pretending to be what she'll never be. The crowd stirred violently now. A man in the line shouted, You can't say that. A younger woman muttered, This is insane. Still, the black woman didn't flinch. Her eyes tracked the manager, her breath steady, her phone still active by her side. The faint light on its screen glowed like an ember. The manager sneered. Return her documents? Not a chance. This isn't charity. We protect real travelers, not imposters playing rich. The insult was deliberate, designed to crush her in public. And yet, instead of shrinking, she stood taller. Her silence weighed heavier than any rebuttal. A passenger near the kiosk shook his head. She gave ID. She gave her passport. You're lying. The manager turned on him. Mind your own business. But the momentum was shifting, and he knew it. The whispers of dissent were louder now, less like murmurs and more like defiance. The agent, desperate to reclaim dominance, sneered again. You want to know what she said at the desk? Accent so heavy it sounded like a monkey call. That's who you're defending. The terminal gasped as one. A child whimpered. A man muttered, She didn't just say that. The young trainee froze, eyes wide. His notepad slipped from his hand, pages scattering. And the black woman? She did not move. She absorbed the slur like stone absorbs rain without breaking, without bending. Then, slowly, she lifted her phone to her lips. Her voice was still calm, still unshaken. Phase 4. Highlight the slur. Priority log. The voice on the other end answered instantly. Confirmed. Audio captured. Secure. The agent rolled her eyes. Imaginary millions, imaginary assistants. Pathetic. But the crowd was no longer convinced. A businessman muttered. That sounded official. A student whispered. She's documenting everything. The balance was shifting, inch by inch, word by word. And yet the manager doubled down, face red, veins sharp at his neck. You're all being fooled. She is nobody. And this charade ends now. But the silence that followed wasn't agreement. It was doubt. At gate D17, the air itself felt like glass thin, fragile, seconds away from shattering. The air cracked as the agent reached across the counter, fingers clawing for the woman's bag. The motion was fast, reckless, meant to humiliate. The strap slipped from the woman's shoulder, dropped onto the conveyor with a thud. Gasps shot through the hall. Hey! A man in line barked. You can't take her property. But the agent was already unzipping the bag, her movements exaggerated, loud. Suspicious contents, she declared, her voice pitched for maximum effect. Could be stolen, could be fraudulent. The crowd erupted. Phones lifted higher, voices shouted sharper. The woman didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on the agent, calm, unblinking. Her phone remained pressed to her lips. Phase 5, she said quietly. Record the seizure. The answer came instantly. Logged. Camera feed secured. The manager stepped closer, feeding off the chaos. His voice thundered, Security! Now! This woman is a threat. Possible fraud. Possible theft. Detain her immediately. The terminal's hum became a roar. Some passengers shouted in protest. Others clutched their bags tighter. Children pressed to parents' sides. The young trainee, trembling, stepped forward. Sir, she hasn't done anything wrong. I saw the scan. I saw her ID. Silence, the manager barked. His voice cracked, betraying fear. The agent pulled a wallet from the bag, holding it aloft like evidence in a trial. Fake IDs, I'm sure of it. But before she could speak again, a woman in the crowd shouted, "That's theft in broad daylight." Another chimed in, "Return it now." The black woman exhaled slowly, every movement controlled. Her silence pulled the room tighter. Then, calmly, she spoke, "Return my property, now." The agent sneered, "Or what? You'll call your imaginary millions again?" She tossed the wallet onto the counter with a loud slap, smirking as if she'd scored a victory. The woman didn't react. She lifted her phone once more. Phase 5 escalated. Note unlawful seizure. The response came, confirmed. Escalation logged. Corporate monitoring live. The crowd shifted, murmurs swelling. A businessman near the gate said, "She's not bluffing, that sounded official." The manager's face hardened. He pointed toward the security corridor. "Officers will be here any second. You'll be escorted out like the fraud you are." But even as he spoke, his words no longer felt like command. They felt like desperation. The black woman stood steady, untouched by the storm around her. She had given them rope, and they were tightening it around their own throats. And the hall, once silent, was now alive with witnesses. The counter still rattled from the slap of her wallet when the woman finally raised her phone fully, screen glowing like a beacon. She didn't shout, she didn't tremble, she simply spoke into the line, her voice calm enough to slice the chaos apart. "Initiate protocol, corporate escalation, immediately." The words weren't for the crowd, but they carried. Strong, measured, undeniable. The response came, crisp and clear, amplified by the silence that followed. "Understood. All terminals notified. Legal monitoring live. Proceed." The manager froze mid-breath. The agent blinked, confusion twitching at the edges of her smirk. Passengers traded glances, whispers rising. "Did you hear that?" Sounded official. "She's not bluffing." The woman lowered the phone just enough to let the glow light her face. Her eyes swept the room, steady, unshaken. "Every word you've spoken," she said, her voice carrying with surgical clarity, "is logged. Every action recorded. There will be consequences." The agent scoffed, but her laugh cracked. "Consequences? For us? Don't make me laugh." Yet the crowd wasn't laughing. A businessman muttered, "She sounds like someone with authority." A young mother whispered, "She hasn't raised her voice once." The trainee officer stepped forward again, voice shaking but resolute. "She's telling the truth. I saw the green scan. I heard her ID verified. They're lying." The manager snapped, "Quiet, you're out of line." But his voice no longer cut it, wavered, strained against the tide turning against him. The woman raised the phone once more. "Note the trainee's statement. Protect his role." The reply came instantly, logged. Whistleblower protection initiated. Gasps rolled through the terminal. The words carried weight, too precise, too procedural to be fantasy. Passengers leaned in now, eyes sharp, phones lifted openly. They weren't hiding anymore. The manager's face drained of color. Who exactly are you talking to?" For the first time, the woman allowed a flicker of expression. Not a smile, not yet just the calm steel of inevitability. "You'll find out," she said softly, "when your supervisor calls you in 5 minutes." The agent shook her head furiously. "She's bluffing. She has to be. Look at her. Jeans, scarf, accent. She doesn't belong here." But her words no longer landed. They fell flat against the weight of silence, against the sight of passengers shifting sides, against the growing awareness that the woman they tried to erase had been building her case from the very first insult. And the room, once hostile, now tilted slowly, inexorably toward her. The terminal's hum throbbed like a drumbeat, every second louder, every breath tighter. The manager stood rigid, sweat creeping along his collar. The agent crossed her arms, forcing a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. And the black woman, still calm, still steady, finally raised her phone for all to see. The logo on the screen glowed unmistakable. Carter Global Travel Group. Whispers shot through the line like sparks in dry grass. "Wait, I know that name. She owns airlines, right? Number bigger. Hotels, agencies, the whole network." The agent's smirk faltered. "That's anyone can fake a screen. Anyone can..." The woman cut across her, voice precise, deliberate. I am the founder and CEO of Carter Global Travel, 950 million in active assets, 42 partnerships across 6 continents, and you just mocked the voice that built it. Gasps erupted. Phones shot higher. A man clapped once, then twice, until others joined, their applause slicing the tension open. The manager stammered, That's impossible. Why would someone like you dress down, walk alone, use the same checkpoints as the travelers who keep my business alive?" Her gaze pierced him. "Because dignity doesn't need a uniform. But respect? Respect is what you just threw in the trash." The crowd roared now, clapping, shouting. Someone yelled, "Tell them!" Another, "You don't mess with her." The agent shrank behind the counter, color draining from her face. You can't prove." The woman held her phone aloft again. "Corporate legal is live. This feed is being streamed to my boardroom right now. Every insult, every theft, every slur. Tell me again I don't belong here." Silence. The kind of silence that suffocates. Then a voice from the back, a teenager, wide-eyed, phone raised, cut the air. "She's the owner. Look her up. She's real." Dozens of passengers pulled out their devices at once. Within seconds, murmurs confirmed it. Search results glowing with headlines, Forbes covers, photos. The manager's lips parted, but no words came. The agent stared at her shoes, suddenly very small in the uniform that once felt like armor. The black woman stepped forward, her tone steady but final. "You mocked my accent, you seized my property, you lied about my name, but you made one mistake you can't undo. You underestimated me." And in that moment, the room shifted completely. No longer a scene of humiliation, but a courtroom. No longer whispers of doubt, but a chorus of witnesses. The storm had broken. The alert mart was complete. The revelation detonated in the terminal like a thunderclap. The weight of it rippled outward, shattering the thin veneer of control the staff thought they had. The manager's face drained of blood. His jaw moved, but no words formed like a man drowning on dry land. He clutched the counter as if it could anchor him, but his authority had already slipped away. The agent staggered back, bumping into the X-ray conveyor. Her smirk had collapsed into panic. No, she can't really be." Her words tangled over themselves, each syllable thinner than the last. Phones were everywhere now. Dozens of glowing rectangles aimed at the scene, capturing every twitch of shame, every crack in their facade. The crowd's whispers swelled into a chant-like rhythm. "She owns it. She owns it. She owns it." A clap broke through, then another. Applause surged like a wave, crashing across gate D17. Some passengers stood taller, clapping with both hands high, defiant. Others shouted, "Justice!" and "Accountability." The young trainee stood frozen, eyes wide, notebook forgotten at his feet. Relief flickered across his face, relief that his instinct to speak had been right, relief that truth had found its voice. The older woman with the cane jabbed it toward the counter. "You humiliated her, in front of all of us. Now the whole world's watching." The manager turned, desperate. "Listen, please, this was a misunderstanding." But his words drowned beneath the crowd's roar. Applause, shouts, phones live streaming. The power had shifted irreversibly. The agent's hands shook as she tried to straighten her uniform. "It was protocol," she whispered weakly. "We were following policy." "No," the businessman near the kiosk snapped. "You were following prejudice." His phone captured every word, his voice cutting like a verdict. The black woman remained centered, calm amidst the storm. She had not raised her tone once, yet the hall bent around her presence. The applause wasn't just for her victory, it was for the way she had won it. With silence, with dignity, with proof. The manager slumped against the counter, eyes darting toward the side corridor where security had yet to appear. He looked smaller now, his suit suddenly too big, his authority shattered. Passengers surged closer, not in threat but in solidarity. Phones raised higher, capturing angles, posting clips. The hum of notifications buzzed across the crowd. Hashtags already forming, already trending. The trainee officer finally bent down, picked up his notebook, and tucked it under his arm. His voice was quiet, but clear. "They tried to erase you, and failed." The black woman gave a small nod. Not thanks, not triumph acknowledgement. And behind her, the chant continued. "She owns it. She owns it. She owns it." The hall was no longer a place of humiliation. It was a courtroom, and the verdict had been delivered. The clapping had not yet faded when the black woman finally raised her phone once more. The crowd hushed instinctively, as though they knew what came next. Her voice was calm, deliberate, every word etched with finality. Terminate local partnership with this terminal. Effective immediately. The reply from the line was crisp, undeniable. Confirmed. Partnership suspended. Executing now. Gasps shot through the crowd. The manager blinked rapidly, his lips moving without sound, as if the words had stolen the air from his lungs. The agent staggered, her hands trembling against the counter. The woman continued, her gaze locked on the staff. Effective this moment, Horizon Security is no longer contracted to Carter Global Travel. Access revoked. All credentials disabled. The phone responded again, clear enough for the entire hall to hear. System lockout complete. Staff IDs invalidated. And then it happened. The agent's badge, once glowing green, flickered red with a faint buzz. Her gasp cut the silence. She tapped it again, frantic, but the color did not change. The manager fumbled at his chest, swiping his card against the side panel. Red, locked, final. The crowd erupted shouts, applause, phones held high to capture the collapse in real time. "You're finished," someone yelled. "Justice in action," another cheered. The trainee officer stepped forward, his voice steady for the first time. "She's telling the truth. Their badges are dead. They've been cut off." The older woman with the cane pointed directly at the counter staff. "You tried to erase her. Now you've been erased." The black woman's tone never rose, never broke. She lifted her phone one last time. "Legal. Log termination for audit. Freeze their accounts pending review. Notify Oversight Board." The reply came instantly. "Logged and secured. Audit initiated." The manager slumped back, sweat soaking his collar. "Please," he stammered. "This was a mistake, just procedure." But his words no longer mattered. His authority was gone, stripped by the very system he once wielded like a weapon. The agent's hands shook as she pulled her badge free, staring at its red glow as though it had betrayed her. Her whisper barely carried, but the crowd heard it anyway. We lost everything." "Ugh." The black woman stepped forward, calm as ever, her scarf pale against the chaos, her presence unshaken. She didn't gloat. She didn't taunt. She simply stood, proof incarnate that power doesn't need volume, it needs precision. And around her, the hall erupted once more. Applause, cheers, hashtags born in real time. The tide had turned, and it would not recede. The terminal had transformed. What began as a stage for humiliation was now a chamber of justice. Phones glowed like lanterns in the dim light, capturing the moment history bent toward dignity. The black woman stood at the center, unshaken. She hadn't shouted, hadn't begged. She had simply let their cruelty speak for itself, and then answered with truth. The manager leaned heavily on the counter, eyes hollow, his badge red and useless. The agent sat slumped on a chair, staring at the floor, her smirk erased forever. The power they thought was theirs had been stripped away in front of everyone. Passengers pressed closer, not in fear, but in awe. The young trainee officer stood taller now, shoulders squared, as if witnessing her resilience had lit a fire he didn't know he carried. The older woman tapped her cane once against the tile. "Remember this," she said to no one and everyone. "This is how you fight back with proof, with dignity." The black woman finally lifted her phone one last time. Her words were soft, but they echoed through the terminal. "You thought my accent made me weak, but today, my voice grounded every flight tied to your contract." Gasps swept through the hall, followed by thunderous applause. Some passengers cheered, others simply placed a hand on their chest, eyes glistening. The chant began again, louder this time. "She owns it. She owns it. She owns it." End of fifth. The woman lowered her phone, slipped it into her coat pocket, and adjusted her scarf with the calm of someone who had weathered storms before. Her gaze swept the hall once more, not angry, not triumphant, simply resolute. "Respect," she said clearly, "isn't optional. It's owed." The words fell like a final gavel strike. And then she turned, walking steadily toward the boarding gate. Not rushed, not flustered, every step the measured rhythm of power revealed. The crowd parted as she moved, not out of fear but reverence, their phones still capturing the image of a woman who refused to be erased. Behind her, the manager sank deeper into his chair. The agent covered her face, and the hum of applause swelled into a roar that followed her all the way down the corridor. The story was already out, clips flooding social media, hashtags burning across timelines, headlines writing themselves, "Black CEO shuts down airport contract after accent mocked." Ugh. And for those who witnessed it firsthand, one truth would remain etched forever. Justice didn't come from shouting. It came from standing. It came from silence sharpened into steel. It came from a voice they tried to mock and could never silence.